The alarm bells rang through the crystal halls of Nexus Prime. Chairman Veltar moved his old reptilian body faster than he had in decades. His scales clicked against the polished floor as he rushed toward the council chambers. Something was very wrong. The massive doors opened before him. Inside, hundreds of alien representatives sat in their floating pods, all talking at once. Their voices created a loud buzz that hurt his ears. But Veltar's eyes went straight to the empty section on the left side of the chamber, the human section. Every single seat was empty. "Where are they?" Veltar asked his assistant, a small blue creature named Picton. "Gone, sir. All of them. They left 3 hours ago." Veltar felt his stomach drop. In 300 years of galactic politics, he had never seen anything like this. The humans had been part of the council for 200 years. They never missed a meeting. Never. "What do you mean, gone?" Veltar's voice was sharp. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim submitted a formal notice. "All human diplomatic staff are returning to human space. They are ending all council relationships." The old chairman sat, down hard in his floating chair. This was a disaster. The humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the oldest or the smartest, but they were important, very important. And now, they were leaving. Veltar remembered the last meeting clearly. It was only 2 weeks ago. The hegemony had attacked the human colony world of New Busan. The attack was sudden and brutal. 50,000 humans died in the first day. The colony sent desperate calls for help to the council. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim had stood before the entire council. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with anger. He spoke in simple words that everyone could understand. "The hegemony has attacked our people without cause. They have killed innocent families. Our children are dying while we sit here and talk. We ask the council to help us stop this attack." The debate went on for hours. Some species wanted to help. The humans. Others said it was not the council's problem. The hegemony was powerful and dangerous. Many council members were afraid to fight them. In the end, the council voted to do nothing. They would send food and medical supplies, but no military help. They would write a strong letter to the hegemony asking them to stop. That was all. Veltar watched Kim's face when the vote was announced. The human ambassador did not shout or curse. He just nodded slowly. Then he spoke again. "The people of New Busan fought alone for 6 days. Human ships arrived on the 7th day and drove the hegemony away. We saved our colony ourselves, while the council debated and did nothing." Kim paused and looked around the chamber. Every alien representative was silent. "Today, the Galactic Council has shown us what we really are to you. We are members when you need us, but strangers when we need you. We understand now." The ambassador walked out that day, but he came back the next week for one final meeting. This time, he carried a simple data pad. "This is humanity's formal resignation. From the Galactic Council," Kim said. His voice was steady and clear. "We are ending all diplomatic relationships. All trade agreements are canceled. All military cooperation is finished. All scientific exchanges are stopped." "You cannot do this," shouted Councillor Zethara from the Vortan Empire. "The council has rules. You must give us 6 months' notice." Kim smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "We checked the rules very carefully. Clause 847B allows immediate withdrawal if a member species faces genocide and the council refuses to help. The hegemony tried to kill every human on New Busan. You refused to help. We are leaving now." "But the trade routes," called out another representative. "The shipping lanes, the communication networks." "All human-built and human-run systems will be shut down in 72 hours, Kim replied. "We suggest you find new solutions quickly." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives jumped from their seats and shouted at each other. Some demanded that the humans be forced to stay. Others said good riddance. A few species started arguing about who would take over the human trade routes. Through all the noise, Kim stood quietly at his podium. When the shouting died down, he spoke one last time. "For 200 years, humans have been good council members. We followed the rules. We paid our taxes. We sent our ships to help other species. We shared our technology freely. We trusted you to help us when we needed it." He looked directly at Chairman Veltar. "You have taught us that trust was a mistake. We will not make it again." Kim turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, his entire staff followed. They moved like soldiers, their backs straight and their faces hard. At the door, Kim stopped and looked back. "Goodbye, Galactic Council. Humanity will remember how you treated us." Now, 3 days later, Veltar sat in the empty chamber and felt the weight of those words. Reports were coming in from across council space. Human diplomats were packing up their offices. Human trade. Ships were turning around and heading home. Human scientists were loading their equipment and leaving their research stations. "Sir," Picton said quietly, "there's more." "What now?" "The humans have declared their space off limits to all council ships. Admiral Tae-Min Park sent a message an hour ago. Any council vessel entering human territory will be asked to leave." Immediately, Veltar closed his eyes. This was getting worse by the hour. "And sir, Dr. So-Young Lee was the last human to leave the medical research station on Ring 7. Before she left, she destroyed all the research data. She said it belonged to humanity, not the council." The old chairman felt very tired suddenly. Dr. Lee had been working on a cure for the Red Plague, a disease that killed thousands of aliens every year. Her research was almost finished. Now it was gone. "Get me a connection to Earth," Veltar said. "Sir, we tried. The humans are not accepting any communications from council space." Veltar looked out at the empty human section of the chamber. 200 years of friendship and cooperation, gone in 3 days. He had been chairman for 50 years, and this was his greatest failure. But even as he sat there, Veltar knew the truth that most council members did not understand yet. The humans were not just leaving the council. They were taking half of galactic civilization with them. The trade routes, the communication networks, the shipping systems, the technology that made modern life possible. It was all built and run by humans. Without the humans, the galaxy was about to become a very different place. And Veltar was afraid it would not be a better place. The empty seats seemed to stare back at him, accusing him of the biggest mistake in council history. The humans were gone, and he had no idea how to get them back. Outside the chamber windows, human ships continued to stream away from Nexus Prime. They moved in perfect formation, like they had practiced this withdrawal many times. Maybe they had. Maybe the humans had been planning this for longer than anyone realized. Chairman Veltar sat alone in his chamber and watched the future of the galaxy fly away into the darkness of space. Captain Do-hyun Choi watched the loading dock through his ship's window. Alien workers moved in panic, trying to unload cargo from human ships before they left forever. The workers knew what was coming. Without human ships, half the galaxies, trade would stop. "Captain," his first officer called from the bridge, "we have clearance to depart. All human personnel are aboard." Do-hyun nodded. His cargo ship, the Sol Star, had been running this route for 15 years. He knew every space station, every trade post, every alien merchant along the way. Today was the last time he would see any of them. "Take us out," he ordered. As the Sol Star pulled away from the station, Do-hyun saw dozens of other human ships doing the same thing. Cargo vessels, passenger ships, research vessels, and military escorts, all heading home to human space. The exodus had begun. 3 days into their journey, the first emergency calls started coming in. All ships, the voice crackled over the radio. "This is Bendara Station. We have a critical shortage of medical supplies. Can any human ships assist?" Do-hyun's communications officer looked at him. "Sir?" No response, Do-hyun said. The order had been clear. No assistance to council members, no exceptions. More calls came over the next few hours. A mining station needed food. A research outpost was running out of power cells. A passenger liner was stranded with engine problems. All of them had depended on human supply ships. Now those ships were gone. On the 5th day, Do-hyun received a personal message from his old friend, trader Jinho Bayek. Jinho ran a commercial office on Hub Station, one of the biggest trade centers in the galaxy. "Do-hyun, you need to see this," Jinho's message said. "Everything is falling apart here." The video showed Hub Station's main cargo bay. Normally, it was full of activity. Ships coming and going, workers moving goods, merchants making deals. Now it was almost empty. A few alien ships sat at the docks, but most of the berths were vacant. The Humans handled 60% of all cargo that came through here, Jinho explained. 60%? I never realized how much we did until we stopped doing it. Jinho walked through the station's corridors. Many shops were already closed. Without human trade ships bringing goods, there was nothing to sell. Aliens sat in groups, talking quietly about what would happen next. The station administrator asked me to stay, Jinho continued. He offered to double my pay, then triple it. He's desperate. But I told him no. We're going home. Do-hyun understood. Jinho had worked at Hub Station for 12 years. He had built relationships with hundreds of alien traders. But the orders were clear. All humans were coming home. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Director Young Sik Yoon was shutting down the traffic control center at Nexus Gateway. The gateway was the busiest shipping route in Council space. Every day, thousands of ships passed through its corridors. Sir, one of his technicians said, without our navigation system, the aliens can't manage the traffic flow. There are already 3 near collisions today. Young Sik looked at the control boards. Red lights flashed everywhere. Ships were backing up in the approach lanes. The alien controllers were trying their best, but they didn't understand the human-built systems. Not our problem anymore, Young Sik said, but he felt bad saying it. Some of those ships carried families, medical supplies, food for hungry worlds. If the traffic system collapsed, people would die. Download all the technical manuals into the station computer, he ordered. At least give them a chance to figure it out. It was a small mercy, but Young Sik couldn't just walk away and let innocent people suffer. Most of the human crews felt the same way. They were angry at the Council, but they didn't hate regular people. Back on Nexus Prime, Counselor Miran Kang watched the crisis grow worse every day. Miran was an Etherian, a species that had always been friendly with humans. She had voted to help humanity during the New Busan crisis. Now she was one of the few voices calling for the Council to fix this mess. We made a terrible mistake, she told the emergency session. The humans were our partners, not our servants. We treated them badly, and now we're paying the price. The humans are being childish, replied Counselor Zethara. They'll come back when they realize they need us. Miran shook her head. You still don't understand. We need them more than they need us. Look at the reports. The reports were frightening. In just 1 week since the humans left, shipping delays had increased by 400%. 3 major trade routes were completely blocked. Communication between distant worlds was breaking down. Even the life support systems on some stations were failing because human maintenance crews were gone. On my homeworld, Miran continued, we depend on human-grown food supplements. Without them, thousands of our children will get sick. The humans tried to warn us about this 2 years ago. They said we were too dependent on their systems. We told them not to worry about it. The chamber was quiet. Most council members had never paid attention to the small details of how the galaxy actually worked. They made big political decisions, while humans quietly kept everything running. The Korthak cluster has lost all communication, another representative reported. The humans built and maintained the relay stations. Without them, 12 worlds are completely cut off. The medical research station on Gamma 7 is shutting down, said another. All the human doctors and scientists left. They took their research with them. More reports came in every hour. Food shortages here, power failures there, communication breakdowns everywhere. The galaxy was starting to break apart. But the worst, news came from the border regions. Without human patrol ships, the hegemony was getting bolder. They had attacked 2 more council worlds in the past week. The local defense fleets were weak and scattered. They couldn't stop the raids. Where are our military allies? Chairman Veltar asked his advisors. The Vorthon Empire is dealing with their own trade crisis, one advisor replied. The Stellar Federation is having power grid failures. The Core Worlds Alliance is facing food riots. Veltar felt his world crumbling around him. The Council had dozens of member species with powerful militaries, but all of them were struggling with their own problems caused by the human withdrawal. Meanwhile, on the edge of human space, something interesting was happening. Small groups of aliens were arriving at human border stations. They weren't traders or diplomats. They were refugees. Please, an alien family leader told the human border guards. Our world is starving. The food ships stopped coming. We heard that humans have food to spare. The human commander, General Haewon Shin, had strict orders. No council citizens were allowed in human space. But these weren't council citizens anymore. They were just hungry people looking for help. "Sir?" his aide asked quietly. "What do we do?" Haewon looked at the alien family. There were children with them, small and scared. He thought about the orders from Earth. No exceptions. No contact with council space. But he also thought about what it meant to be human. Humans didn't let children starve, even alien children. "Set up a refugee camp on Station 7, he ordered. "Give them food and medical care, but keep them separated from our main facilities." It was a small act of kindness, but word spread quickly through the border regions. The humans were gone from council space, but they hadn't forgotten how to help people in need. As the crisis deepened, more and more aliens began to realize the truth that Miran Kang had tried to tell the council. The humans hadn't just been members of the galactic community. They had been the foundation that held it all together, and now that foundation was gone. General Haewon Shin stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching the screens that showed the border between human space and the rest of the galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since the withdrawal began. Every day brought new ships to the border. But none of them were human ships trying to leave. They were alien ships trying to get in. "General," her communications officer called, "we have another diplomatic vessel requesting permission to enter human space. This one claims to speak for the Benthic Alliance." Haewon sighed. This was the 15th diplomatic mission this week. They all wanted the same thing: to talk to human leaders about ending the separation, to negotiate, to find some way to bring humanity back to the galactic community. "Same response as always," she ordered. "Polite refusal. Direct them to contact Earth through official channels." But Haewon knew that Earth wasn't accepting any communications from council space. The government had made that very clear. Humanity was done talking to the people who had abandoned them. The alien ship on her screen was sleek and elegant, clearly built for diplomacy rather than war. She felt a little sorry for the beings inside. They were probably good people, trying to fix a terrible mistake. But it was too late for sorry. "General," another officer reported, "long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity in the Zerion sector, multiple ships converging on our border." Haewon frowned. The Zerion sector was controlled by the Malthari Republic, one of the more aggressive council members. They had been vocal critics of humanity's withdrawal. "What kind of ships?" "Military vessels, ma'am. At least 20 ships in formation." Haewon felt her stomach tighten. Were the aliens actually planning to force their way into human space? That would be incredibly stupid. But desperate people did stupid things. "Alert Admiral Jihai Park," she ordered, "and get me a secure line to Earth Command." While her crew worked, Haewon thought about the past 3 weeks. The reports from Council Space were getting worse every day. The galaxy was falling apart, without human support. But instead of admitting their mistake, some species were getting angry. They blamed humanity for the crisis. On the other side of the galaxy, engineer Sung-Ho Nam was dealing with a different kind of problem. He worked on the maintenance crew that kept the massive communication relay stations running. These stations allowed instant communication across thousands of light years. Without them, the galaxy would go back to the old days when messages took months to travel between worlds. The Council had built these stations, but humans had designed and maintained them for the past century. When the withdrawal order came, Sung-Ho and his team had 3 days to shut everything down and leave. "The aliens are calling us monsters," his assistant, tech specialist Kyung-min said as they packed their equipment. "They say we're destroying galactic civilization." Sung-Ho looked at the alien news broadcasts on his screen. The reports were full of anger and fear. Some species were calling for military action against humanity. Others were begging humans to come back. A few were starting to blame the Council itself. "We're not destroying anything," Sung-Ho replied. "We built these systems with our own hands and our own knowledge. If they want to keep them running, they can learn how to do it themselves." But as they prepared to leave, Sung-Ho felt conflicted. He had worked on these stations for 20 years. He knew every circuit, every program, every backup system. Without proper maintenance, they would start failing within months. "Sir," Kyung-min said quietly, "should we leave the technical manuals?" Sung-Ho thought about it. The manuals contained everything the aliens would need to maintain the stations. but they also contained human technology that had taken decades to develop. Leave the basic maintenance guides, he decided. Enough to keep things running for a few months. After that, it's their problem. It was a compromise, like the one director Young Sik-yoon had made at the gateway. The humans were angry, but they weren't cruel. They wouldn't let the galaxy burn just to make a point. Meanwhile, on the council world of Velthara, something unprecedented was happening. Councillor Junho Lim, a member of the peaceful Netherian species, was organizing a protest. "The council has failed us all," he told the crowd of aliens gathered in the capital square. "They threw away our friendship with humanity for political games. Now our children are hungry and our worlds are dark." The protest was small but growing. More regular aliens were starting to understand what their leaders had done. They didn't care about galactic politics or council power struggles. They just wanted their lives to go back to normal. "My daughter needs the medical treatment that human doctors developed," one alien mother said to the crowd. "Without humans, she will die. The council killed my child to save their pride." These stories were spreading across social media throughout council space. Regular people sharing how the human withdrawal was affecting their daily lives. Food shortages, power outages, medical crises, communication failures. The cost of losing humanity was becoming personal for millions of beings. Back at the humans' border, General Haewon Shin was dealing with the Malthari fleet. 20 warships now sat just outside human space, making no aggressive moves but clearly trying to intimidate. "This is General Haewon Shin of the Human Defense Force," she broadcast on open channels. "You are approaching the sovereign border of human space. State your intentions." The reply came from Admiral Korex of the Malthari Republic. His voice was harsh and demanding. "General Shin, I am here by order of the Galactic Council. You will allow our diplomatic team to pass through your border to negotiate with human leadership. Admiral Korex, as I have explained to 14 other diplomatic missions, human space is currently closed to all council vessels. If you wish to communicate with human leadership, you must use official channels through Earth. There are no open channels!" Korex shouted. "Your people refuse all communication. This is unacceptable." Haewon felt her anger rising. The aliens had ignored humanity when they needed help, and now they were angry that humans were ignoring them. "Admiral, you have 10 minutes to withdraw from the border area. After that, you will be considered a hostile force. You cannot threaten us. We outnumber you 20-1. Haewon smiled grimly. The Malthari clearly didn't understand what they were facing. Human ships were smaller than the massive alien vessels, but they were much more advanced. Human military technology had improved dramatically over the past 50 years, while the council members had grown lazy and complacent. "Admiral, you outnumber me 20-1, she replied. "But I outnumber you in every way that matters." To prove her point, Haewon ordered her ships to power up their weapons systems. The energy readings that appeared on Malthari sensors told a very different story than the ship count suggested. Each human vessel carried enough firepower to destroy 3 council ships. "This is impossible," Korex muttered, but his ships began backing away from the border. As the Malthari fleet retreated, Haewon received a message from Earth Command. The content made her smile. "General Shin, you are authorized to accept refugees from council space on a case-by-case basis. Families with children, medical emergencies, and persecution victims are to be given priority. Establish processing centers on stations 7, 12, and 19. It was the first change in policy since the withdrawal began. Humanity was still angry with the council, but they wouldn't abandon innocent people who needed help. Within hours of the announcement, refugee ships began arriving at human border stations. Not government vessels or military fleets, but small family ships and passenger liners carrying people who had lost hope in the council's ability to solve the crisis. Commander Sunmi Jang ran the processing center on Station 19. She interviewed each refugee family personally, trying to understand why they were leaving their homes to seek help from humans. "The power grid on our world failed last week," one alien father explained. "The human maintenance crew left a month ago. Our government says they can fix it, but they've been saying that for 3 weeks. My son needs a breathing machine to live. Without power, he dies. Our food supply ships stopped coming," another refugee said. "The local government is giving Food to the rich families first. Poor families like mine are starving. These weren't political refugees fleeing oppression. These were ordinary people whose lives had been destroyed by the Council's decision to abandon humanity. They had nowhere else to turn. We can offer temporary shelter and basic needs, Sunmi told each family. But you should understand that this situation may not be permanent. At some point, you may need to return to your home worlds. But privately, Sunmi wondered if that would ever be possible. The reports from Council space were getting worse every day. The galaxy was breaking apart, and the Council seemed powerless to stop it. As she processed more refugees, Sunmi began to understand something that the Council still didn't grasp. Humanity hadn't just left the galactic community, they had taken the future with them. President Dongmin Li sat in his office on Earth, reading reports that painted a picture of a galaxy in chaos. 2 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council. What had started as a diplomatic crisis was now becoming a complete collapse of galactic civilization. Mr. President, his aide, Secretary Ji-Woo Park, entered with another stack of urgent messages. We have formal requests from 17 more species asking to join the Human Colonial Federation. Also, 3 council worlds are reporting complete government collapse. Dongmin rubbed his tired eyes. This was not what humanity had wanted. They had left the council to stand on their own, not to watch the galaxy burn. But every day brought worse news from council space. What about the humanitarian situation, he asked. Admiral HFY Park reports that we now have over 2 million refugees in our border stations. Food supplies are holding, but medical facilities are stretched thin. Through his window, Dongmin could see Earth's orbital shipyards working at full capacity. Human engineers were building new stations to house refugees, new ships to patrol the borders, and new communication networks to replace the ones they had left behind in council space. Sir, there's something else, Ji-Woo said quietly. Intelligence reports indicate that the hegemony is preparing for a major offensive. They're moving fleets toward the core worlds. Dongmin felt his blood turn cold. The core worlds were home to over 50 billion aliens. They were the heart of council civilization. If the hegemony conquered them, the resulting genocide would make New Busan look like a minor incident. How long do the core worlds have? Intelligence estimates 3 weeks before the attack begins. The council's defense fleets are scattered and weak. Most of their ships can't even communicate with each other since the relay network failed. On the other side of human space, Admiral HFY Park was dealing with a crisis of her own. Her fleet was supposed to protect human territory, but every day brought new emergencies just outside their borders. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, "We're receiving a distress call from the civilian transport Gentle Hope. They're carrying evacuees from the Corvin system, but their engines are failing. They'll drift into the gravity well of the gas giant Typhon unless someone helps them." How many people on board? 8,000, ma'am, mostly families with children. HFY looked at her tactical display. The Gentle Hope was in council space, technically outside her jurisdiction. But 8,000 innocent people were going to die if no one helped them. Deploy rescue ships, she ordered. Get those people to safety. Ma'am, our orders are to stay in human space. My orders are to protect innocent lives, HFY replied firmly. Human space starts where I say it starts. It was the 5th unauthorized rescue mission her fleet had conducted this month. Each time, she risked a reprimand from Earth Command. But she couldn't stand by and watch people die just because they were on the wrong side of an invisible line. Meanwhile, on the council world of Nethys, rebel leader Kyung-Soo was planning something that would have been impossible just months ago. Kyung-Soo was human, but he had been born on Nethys and spent his whole life there. Technically, he should have returned to human space with the other evacuees. Instead, he had stayed behind to help the local population. The council government here is completely incompetent, he told his group of supporters, both human and alien. They spend all day arguing about politics while people starve in the streets. Kyung-Soo's group had started as a humanitarian organization, distributing food and medical supplies to those in need, but as the situation got worse, they had evolved into something more, a resistance movement against the corrupt local government. "We have contacts in the human refugee fleet," one of his alien supporters reported. "They can get us communication equipment and medical supplies." "What about weapons?" asked another. Kyung-Soo shook his head. We're not terrorists. We're trying to build something better, not destroy what's left. But even as he said it, Kyung-soo knew that violence might be inevitable. The local government was getting more desperate and more brutal every day. Just yesterday, they had fired on peaceful protesters demanding food distribution. Back on Earth, President Dongmin Lee was facing the hardest decision of his presidency. The intelligence reports were clear. The core worlds would fall to the Yor hegemony within weeks. Billions of innocent aliens would die. The council was too weak and divided to stop it. Mr. President, Chancellor In-suk Kim entered his office. She was his most trusted advisor on military matters. The Joint Chiefs are requesting a meeting. They have a proposal. An hour later, Dongmin sat in the secure briefing room with his top military commanders. The holographic display showed the tactical situation in the core world's region. Red markers indicated hegemony fleets. Blue markers showed the scattered remains of council defenses. It wasn't even a fair fight. Mr. President, General Mary Song began, we can stop the hegemony attack, but it would require deploying significant human forces outside our territory. Explain. A preemptive strike on the hegemony staging areas would cripple their offensive capability. Our stealth ships could destroy their supply lines and communication networks. Without those, their fleets would be sitting ducks for even the weak council forces. Dongmin studied the tactical display. The plan was brilliant, but it would mean abandoning humanity's isolationist stance. It would mean getting involved in galactic politics again. What are the risks? Minimal casualties if we execute properly, Admiral Tae-young Cho replied. The hegemony hasn't faced human military technology in open combat. They don't know what we're capable of. I'm not talking about military risks, Dongmin said. I'm talking about political risks. If we intervene now, every species in the galaxy will expect us to solve their problems. We'll be right back where we started. The room was quiet for a moment. Everyone understood the dilemma. Humanity had left the Council to avoid exactly this kind of situation, being expected to fix everyone else's problems. But now 50 billion innocent lives hung in the balance. Sir, General Song said quietly, there is another option. We don't have to rejoin the Council to save the core worlds. We can act independently. As the military leaders discussed strategy, reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy. The Vorthan Empire was dealing with mass starvation. The Stellar Federation was fighting a civil war. The Outer Rim territories were declaring independence from the Council, but there was also positive news. The 17 species that had requested to join the Human Colonial Federation were thriving. With human technology and organizational support, they had solved their food and energy crises within weeks. Their people were safe, well-fed, and hopeful for the future. Mr. President, Secretary Ji-woo Park entered with an urgent message. We've received a secret communication from Counselor Miran Kang. She's asking for an emergency meeting. Dongmin was surprised. Miran Kang was one of the few council members who had supported humanity during the New Busan crisis. She was also one of the most respected voices in galactic politics. What does she want? She says she has information about a coup attempt against Chairman Veltar. Some council members are planning to declare martial law and seize direct control of all member species. This was the last thing the galaxy needed. A military dictatorship running the council would make the current crisis look minor by comparison. Set up the meeting, Dongmin ordered, but keep it completely secret. 3 hours later, Dongmin found himself in a secure communication room, speaking with the Etherian counselor via encrypted channel. Miran Kang looked exhausted and frightened. President Lee, thank you for agreeing to speak with me. I know your government isn't accepting council communications. You said this was about a coup attempt. Yes. Councilors Zethara and Korex are gathering support for emergency powers legislation. They want to suspend the normal voting process and establish direct military rule over all council territories. Dongmin felt his stomach sink. When? The vote is scheduled for next week. If it passes, they'll have the legal authority to conscript ships and personnel from every member species. They're planning to force humanity back into the council by military action. It was exactly what Dongmin had feared. Desperate politicians making desperate decisions that would only make things worse. Counselor Kang, what do you want from me? Help us stop this madness. The galaxy is falling apart, but it doesn't have to end in dictatorship and war. There has to be a better way. Dongmin looked at the tired alien face on his screen. Miran. Kang represented everything good about the old council: cooperation, wisdom, hope for a better future. But she was fighting a losing battle against fear and desperation. "I'll consider your request," he said finally, "but understand that humanity will not be dictated to by anyone. If the council wants our help, they'll have to ask for it properly." After the communication ended, Dongmin sat alone in the dark room. The galaxy was crying out for leadership, but every path forward seemed to lead to more conflict. Humanity had the power to solve the crisis, but using that power would mean abandoning the independence they had fought so hard to achieve. Outside his window, he could see human ships launching toward the border regions. Some carried supplies for refugees. Ambassador Wu Jin's Song stepped off his ship onto Neutral Station Alpha, a small trading post that sat exactly on the border between human space and council territory. It had been 6 months since any human diplomat had met with council representatives. Today, that would change. Behind him walked Director Yunha Cho, humanity's new foreign policy architect, and Captain Minho Han, representing human military interests. They moved with the quiet confidence of people who held all the cards in this negotiation. The station was crowded with media representatives from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see if humanity would rejoin galactic civilization, or if this meeting would end in more separation and conflict. "Ambassador Song," called out a reporter, "will humanity return to the council?" Wu Jin ignored the questions and walked toward the conference room. Inside, he could see the familiar reptilian form of former Chairman Veltar, now just another council delegate. The old politician looked tired and defeated. As Wu Jin entered the room, he saw representatives from dozens of species. Some faces were familiar from his previous diplomatic career. Others were new, species that had only recently joined the council as their own governments collapsed. "Ambassador Song," Veltar stood slowly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." "Former Chairman Veltar," Wu Jin replied formally. "I am here to listen to what the council has to say." The formal language was important. Humanity was not rejoining the council as a member. They were here as an independent power, negotiating between equals. "Please, sit," Veltar gestured to the human delegation's chairs. "We have much to discuss." As the humans took their seats, Wu Jin looked around the room. These were the representatives of a civilization in collapse. In 6 months, the Galactic Council had lost over half its members. Some had joined the Human Colonial Federation. Others had simply declared independence. A few had been conquered by the hegemony before human intervention stopped the attacks. "Ambassador," Veltar began, "the Council wishes to formally thank humanity for the intervention at the core worlds. Your military action saved 50 billion lives." Wu Jin nodded. 3 months ago, President Dongmin Li had authorized the preemptive strike against hegemony forces. Human stealth ships had destroyed the enemy's supply lines and communication networks in a series of surgical strikes. The massive hegemony offensive had collapsed within days. But humanity had not done it to help the Council. They had done it to prevent genocide. "The intervention was a humanitarian action," Wu Jin replied. "Humanity will not stand by while innocent. People are murdered, regardless of their political affiliations. We understand," said Councillor Miran Kang, who now served as the Council's interim leader. "But we hope it represents the beginning of renewed cooperation between our peoples." Director Yunha Cho leaned forward. "Councillor Kang, before we discuss cooperation, we must address the current situation. The Council as it exists today represents fewer than 200 species. 6 months ago, it represented over 800. What exactly are we cooperating with?" It was a harsh but fair question. The Galactic Council was a shadow of its former self. Most of its trade networks had collapsed. Its military was scattered and weak. Its political authority was questioned by almost everyone. "We are rebuilding," Miran Kang replied. "The remaining member species are committed to reform. We want to create a new kind of galactic organization, one based on mutual respect rather than political dominance." Captain Minho Han spoke for I the first time. "Councillor Kang, with respect, we have heard similar promises before. The Council had 200 years to treat humanity as an equal partner. Instead, you treated us as a useful tool until the moment we needed help. The room was quiet. Everyone knew he was right. Veltar cleared his throat. Captain Han, we acknowledge our mistakes. The Council failed humanity during the New Busan crisis. We were wrong to abandon you when you needed us most. Former Chairman, Wu Jin said, acknowledgement is appreciated, but it does not change the fundamental problem. The Council operates on the principle that political decisions override individual species' sovereignty. Humanity will never again submit to rule by committee. Then what do you propose? Asked Miran Kang. Director Yunha Cho opened her data pad and projected a holographic document into the center of the room. The Human Colonial Federation offers a new model for galactic cooperation. Independent species working together through voluntary agreements. No central authority. No forced membership. No decisions imposed on unwilling participants. The alien representatives studied the document carefully. It was a radical departure from the traditional council model. Instead of a single galactic government, it proposed a network of independent nations cooperating on specific issues. This is essentially a dissolution of the council, observed one representative. The council dissolved itself when it failed to protect its members, Yunha Cho replied. We are offering something better to replace it. Over the next 3 hours, the negotiations covered every aspect of the proposal. Trade agreements, military cooperation, scientific exchange, diplomatic protocols. The humans had clearly thought through every detail. What about species that want to maintain the old council system? Asked one delegate. They are free to do so, Wu Jin replied. But they cannot expect automatic cooperation from species that choose independence. Every relationship must be negotiated separately. It was a complete reversal of the old system. Instead of forced unity, there would be voluntary cooperation. Instead of central authority, there would be individual choice. And what about enforcement? Veltar asked. What happens when conflicts arise between independent species? Captain Minho Han smiled grimly. The same thing that happens now when conflicts arise. The strong help the weak if they choose to. The difference is that no one will be forced to help, and no one will be forced to accept help they don't want. As the day wore on, it became clear that most of the remaining council species were willing to accept the human proposal. They had few other options. The old system had failed completely. But there were holdouts. A few species still believed they could restore the council to its former power. They wanted humanity to return as a subordinate member, not as an equal partner. This is unacceptable, declared Councillor Zethara, one of the few hardliners left. The Council has governed the galaxy for over 1,000 years. We will not abandon our authority just because of a temporary crisis. Wu Jin looked at the angry, alien representative with something approaching pity. Councillor Zethara, you misunderstand the situation. The Council's authority was never real. It only existed because species chose to recognize it. When you failed to protect your members, that recognition ended. The Vorthon Empire will never bow to human demands, Zethara shouted. No one is asking you to, Director Yunha Cho replied calmly. The Vorthon Empire is free to maintain whatever government it chooses, but it cannot expect automatic cooperation from species that have chosen a different path. It was a polite way of saying that the holdout species would be isolated from the new galactic community. They could keep their pride, but they would lose access to human technology, trade networks, and military protection. As the formal negotiations ended, Wu Jin found himself in a private conversation with Miran Kang. The Etherian leader looked older than her years, worn down by months of crisis management. Ambassador Song, she said quietly, I want you to know that not all of us supported the decision to abandon humanity during the New Busan crisis. Some of us fought for you. I know. Councillor Kang, that's why you're here talking to us instead of sitting in a prison cell. It was a harsh reminder of how completely the power balance had shifted. The species that had supported humanity were being invited to join the new Federation. Those that had opposed humanity were being left behind. What happens now? Miran Kang asked. Now we build something better, Wu Jin replied. A galaxy where cooperation is chosen, not forced, where species are partners, not subjects, where strength is used to protect the weak, not dominate them. Through the station's windows, he could see human ships arriving with supplies for the refugee camps. Other ships were departing with alien families who had chosen to resettle in human Colonial Federation territory. The Great Migration was continuing as species chose their futures. "Will it work?" Miran Kang asked. Wu Jin thought about the question. The galaxy was still struggling with the aftermath of the Council's collapse. Billions of people were displaced, hungry, or afraid. It would take years to build stable new institutions, but for the first time in months, he felt hopeful. Counselor. Kang, 6 months ago, the galaxy was ruled by a committee that couldn't protect its own members. Today, it's governed by the choices of free peoples. Yes, I think it will work. As the human delegation prepared to leave Neutral Station Alpha, reporters crowded around them for final statements. "Ambassador Song," one called out. "What message do you have for species considering joining the Human Colonial Federation?" Wu Jin paused at the airlock entrance. Behind him, he could see the remnants of the Galactic Council still arguing about details and procedures. Ahead of him lay human space, where former enemies were becoming new friends and refugees were becoming citizens. "The message is simple," he said. "Humanity offers partnership, not domination.